Hello athletes, Travis here with GTS Rowing. In this video, I'm going to be talking about how I train my athletes to carry their hands and their handle through the stroke cycle on the indoor rowing machine, both for maximum efficiency on the machine and for best transfer to on the water. The biggest thing we want to think about here is to develop patterns of movement, not to try to replicate exact actions that are going to happen on the water. And that's where a lot of coaches go wrong. On the erg, they talk about this lift at the front end and this press down at the back end. And those are things that we do not want to think about on the rowing machine, because in the water, there's so much going on. There's so many different conditions that you're going to be in, so many different rig types that you're going to have, that doing a specific motion is not ideal. All right, and we'll talk a little bit about that as I kind of go through this lecture on how to carry your hands through. There are a couple things that we want to think about as we're doing this, and things that we want to understand about how the handle moves, both on the rowing machine and on the water. The biggest thing is that the handle, if I were to let go of this, that handle is going to fly back to the flywheel. All right, it's going to fly to the flywheel so fast that if I were to sit here and let go of the handle, no matter what my reaction time is, I would not be able to then catch the handle in the air on its way up, all right? It moves faster than I can move, all right? And the takeaway from that is, at no point do you have to move the handle forward on the recovery. What you need to do is you need to allow the handle to move, all right? So you are either drawing the handle in or holding the handle in position. At no point do you physically need to move the handle forward. So you need to develop this ability to adjust pressure on that handle to allow it to move very quickly or very slowly. All right? And this transfers to what is happening on the water because of conservation center of mass, momentum, all these things. The oar is connected to the boat through the oarlock, all right, and that fulcrum, which is a moving position. All right, if you are rowing, the boat is moving, and you let go of that oar, all right, that oar handle will also move to the stern on its own, all right, because it is not connected to the boat, which is moving this way. And so what is actually happening is that as soon as you let go of that handle stays where it is, and the boat continues to move forward. So relative to the boat, the handle is moving to stern. And so that's a really cool thing about rowing on the indoor rowing machine, is that kind of recoil, all right, that bungee replicates that motion pattern of the boat, all right? And so just like on the erg, where we need to kind of get used to allowing the handle to move forward, same kind of thing in the boat, all right? You want a very relaxed grip on that handle, and you want to kind of guide it away from you. You do not necessarily need to push it away from you. The next thing that we want to think about, actually one thing before I kind of go up. A lot of people ask me what I think about the dynamic erg by Concept 2. The dynamic erg, I hate that term because it's very confusing. I call any erg on slides, a Row Perfect, all these other machines that hit the market that kind of automatically have that dynamic aspect to it. I'll refer to ergs as dynamic machines because of that. But here I'm talking about the product labeled the Dynamic Erg by Concept 2. One of the main reasons I do not like the Dynamic Erg by Concept 2 is that it does not have that recoil. All right, so it does not have that same simulation of a handle that will move to the stern relative to you through the stroke. All right, and also part of that is that because of that tension created by the bungee, the handle is also kind of supported in the hands, all right? And in the boat, if you're rowing, the handle wants to go up, all right? And we'll talk about this a little bit later in terms of how we're holding the handle as well. But you are putting pressure down on that blade handle to keep the oar out of the water, and then you set it in the water, and then once it's in the water, you're applying only horizontal force on the handle to draw it back, all right? So the absence of any kind of bungee on the Dynamic Erg by Concept 2 eliminates those kind of simulations of how a handle feels in your hands when you're on the water. And that's the biggest reason why I do not like the dynamic erg, and I would prefer a static standard row erg, I used to call it. Back in my day, we just called it indoor rowing machine, but a row erg on slides. I feel like it's a superior kind of commercial budget option. The other options being row perfect, and anybody that's not trying to be a high performance rower does not need a row perfect. So we understand kind of how that handle feels in that handle. So how do we kind of move the handle through? All right. A big thing, the next point I want to focus on is that when you get to the front end, all right, you should not lift when you are at the catch. All right. And this is similar, but not exactly what's going to happen on the water. But how I teach the motion on the erg is that we are going to draw straight through to the sternum. As we move away from the body, we are then going to let the hands get heavy, and the handle is going to sink as the body pivots forward. And then as soon as we start to move the hips by rising with the knees, the handle then begins to rise with the knees as if the arms are filling with helium. And then we should be at the height of the drive before we get to the drive. All right? And it is completely okay to exaggerate that and to get to the height of the drive before you actually get to the catch, because we are trying to simulate patterns, all right? And we need a pattern in the boat of the hands rising to the front end, all right? Not traveling level, definitely not traveling down, but those hands need to rise into the front end. And then when you get to the front end, you need to drive back, all right? So I'll do a quick summary of everything before I start to break it down even further, all right? So at the release, it is extremely important, and I talk about this a lot in one of my other videos, that we are not pulling the handle in with your hands. This is not how we finish the stroke. It is not a curl. The end of the stroke is a row in the sense that you are bringing your elbow back through the rib cage, and because your hands are connected to your elbow and your hands are holding the handle, by bringing the elbow back with the big muscles of your back, you are going to draw the handle into the sternum, all right? And so I can bring the handle into the sternum like this without moving my elbows back. I'm going to use very small muscles of the front of my arm compared to if I bring my elbows through the ribs. I'm using my big old lats, my big back muscles to create that impulse into the back end of the stroke, all right? So I'm going to draw in, ideally around the sternum height, all right? But there is a lot of variation on the erg because that chain is coming from a fixed position, whereas on the water you can adjust where the height of the handle is. So you might see people kind of drawing up here. You might see people draw a little bit lower. I would never go much below, maybe a centimeter below the sternum, all right? Stay out of your gut, stay away from your belly button, definitely stay away from your thighs, all right? Coming into the sternum, if you go a little bit higher, that's okay, just because the adjustability on the inner rowing machine is non-existent compared to the water. So we're drawing in. As we come from this position, remember the first thing I said, if I were to let go of this handle, that handle is going to fly forward, all right? So I do not need to move the handle forward. What I need to do is relax the pressure on the handle and allow the handle to move on its own. So I'm kind of following the handle forward with my hands. And usually I want to get almost to where the handle is following the path of the chain, away from the body at first, and then as I get a few inches away from the body, my hands are going to start to get heavy, all right? I am not pushing the handle down, all right? I am getting heavy hands, all right? So if I were to put my hand on a floating ball, I can either push that ball down or I can just kind of rest my hand on it, and the more weight I allow to get on that floating ball, the more depth that ball will have in the water. That's the feeling that we want on the handle, all right? We are not ever pushing the handle down, all right? We are simply adding weight to the handle, all right? Now on the water, at the release, there will be a very slight motion down that comes from a pivot on the elbow down, all right? It is not this. It is definitely not flapping like a little hummingbird, all right? It is the elbow comes back, the hands push down slightly to finish the extraction of the blade and to get it onto the feather, all right? But we don't need to do that on the erg, all right? Because that is such a subtle motion, and it is very different on the water depending on what's happening in the boat. The boat might be leaning one way, it might be leaning the other. You might be set, you might be in a single, you might be in an eighth, you might be rigged high, you might be rigged low. It is so many different scenarios that you do not need to worry about that here, all right? You're gonna adapt to what you need on the water, all right? What you do want to ensure is that you're drawing into the right place with the right muscles, moving the elbow, not moving the hands, and then we release the pressure, all right? We allow the handle to start moving forward, and as it gets several inches away from the body, then we can allow the hands to get heavy, all right? And in the boat, what happens here, we talked about that oar. It's sitting in the oar lock. The blade is heavier than the handle. If you are to let go of that handle, the handle will go up and the blade will go down. So the same thing is happening in the boat. In the boat, you are putting weight on top of the handle. At no point are you pushing the handle down through the recovery sequence. You are adding weight to the handle and taking weight off. And you want to develop a sense and a feel for the balance of the boat through that pressure on the handle, the same way as if you were guiding somebody who was blindfolded through a hallway to where they have a big old Christmas present waiting for them. Something like that. You're gonna kind of put your hand on their shoulder, you're gonna put a little pressure on them if you want them to go that way, you're gonna take a little pressure off if you want them to come this way, or you're going to allow them to move naturally until they're moving and they're gonna hit something, and then you influence them, all right? That kind of adjustable, kind of very reactive pressure on your hand, on that person's shoulder, is the same thing that's happening on the handle, all right? You are going to be kind of feeling the balance of the boat, feeling what's happening in either resisting, all right? So if that person is kind of walking towards you through the hallway, you're either kind of stopping them from walking into you or walking into that table that's in the middle of the hallway. You are not pushing them one way or another, all right? Same thing with the handle, all right? We are going to add some weight to the handle because we want height of the blade off the water. And then we are gonna take pressure and weight off that handle as we move forward. So we're gonna come to the release. We're gonna move a couple inches away, and I would say at this point, move almost directly away from the body. And then the hands start to get heavy as the body sits forward. And then we need to, as the knees come up, the hands start to get light again, all right? And I talk to my athletes about imagining that your arms are filling with helium as you come up, all right? So those knees rising is kind of releasing the valve. The arms fill with helium. The handle floats up with them. They pivot from the shoulder so that the entire arm moves up as if it is a straight 2x4, all right? 2x4 can't bend in the middle, all right? It just rises the whole way. So as the knees come up, the handle comes up too. You can imagine that you have two positive magnets here and they are pushing against each other. So once the body is forward, at no point after that moment do the hands continue to travel down. You do not want that handle dragging or anywhere around your ankles. You do not want the handle anywhere around your shins. You want to extend, sink, and then float as we come forward. And then drive, extend, sink, float up, and drive back. Extend, sink, float up, and drive. And you can exaggerate these so that they happen in very specific times or very quickly, very slowly is all right too. When I'm first teaching an athlete, I would like to say, we'll extend, we'll sink with the body, we'll rise as the knees come up, and I like to even teach them to rise very quickly so that they are at the height of the drive by the time the handle gets over the handle catcher or even over the toes. All right, you're rising early, you come in and level, and then you drive through. Things that you can look for in yourself if you're in front of a mirror or if you're a coach is that the handle should never rise as a result of pressure on the foot stretcher. So if you have someone come up and then they push, the first thing that happens with pressure on the handle is it jerks up to ensure that the chain is directly between the force on the handle and that cog that the chain is attached to, all right? You need to ensure, if you're doing this properly, that the handle is high enough at that point that once you press back, you move back immediately, that there is no vertical component of the handle motion at that time. And that is going to create this pattern, whereas you're always used to taking the catch on the water with the blade in the water, all right? If you have a bunch of athletes that come up to the catch like this, they push and then that handle jerks up because of the pressure and because it's creating tension in the chain between handle and cog. Those are going to be athletes that are missing a lot of water on the boats, and you could easily have fixed that by training the right pattern on the indoor rowing machine, all right? Now, if you are an advanced rower, you're going to say, well, Travis, actually the handle does rise through the drive, because what actually happens in the boat is at no point do you want to be in contact with the water and not be moving it forward. All right, so we talk about backing the blade in sometimes. You're not literally backing the boat at the catch and then getting it all the way in and going. What's happening is that as soon as that bottom edge of the blade touches the water, you are going to start to press, all right? You are not going to explode, all right? That's shitty coaching advice right there. You do not explode at the catch. You squeeze, and you squeeze very delicately and very quickly, and you're squeezing to basically get pressure on the front of the blade while the blade is going from the bottom tip touching to fully buried, all right? And a very good rower is going to be able to get from bottom edge of the blade, touching the water, to fully buried with very, very, very little action in the drive, all right? They're gonna be very quick, very precise with it, all right? But at no point, all right, are you going to be doing this huge lift, all right? It is simply, you feel it, you squeeze to set, all right? You're talking about millimeters of action in the hands here. You are not gonna replicate millimeters of action appropriately or accurately on the indoor rowing machine, so leave that skill to the water. What you do need to ensure is that when you get to the catch, your hands are forward so that your drive has horizontal power application, that at no point through the drive you're getting this jerk up, all right? Don't do it. So, we draw through. We begin to extend, let the handle follow the path of the chain. The hands begin to get heavy as the body sets forward. As the knees come up, the handle floats. We're at the catch and we're already at the height we need to be on the drive. We can come straight back and repeat that process. All right? Other things that you want to watch out for. You do not want that handle dragging along those thighs, all right? At no point in the water, when you push down, are you pushing down all the way to the thighs, all right? It's bad rowing, it's bad rigging, it might be bad set, but you never want it to happen. You always want the handle over your thighs as you extend away, all right? And so if you're coming and you're just sink right away and those hands are lazy, all right, and you're just letting the weight of the handle kind of come down, then you're gonna kind of get too low to the thighs, to the knees. You're gonna come and you're dragging a little bit over the shins before you start to rise. We don't want to do that, all right? We still want a little bit of buoyancy in the handle as we go, all right? So again, kind of take that analogy. The handle is like a ball floating on the surface of the water, all right? You are going to put some weight on top of that ball to kind of sink it a little bit, and then as soon as you relieve that weight on the handle, the ball is going to come right back up to the surface, all right? And you're going to keep it at the surface as we come forward. Extend, away, put weight on the handle, the top of the handle, take weight off the handle, float the arms, drive back into the release with the elbows. Extend, sink, rise, drive straight back. Extend, sink, rise straight back, all right? And this is the path that we want with the hands. You are more than welcome to exaggerate how soon you rise. Because again, you're creating patterns, all right? You're not trying to match timing. Timing happens in the boat. It changes every stroke, especially for a less experienced rower, because there's a lot of things going on in the boat. You have other rowers with you, they're doing their own thing, you have water conditions, you have wind, all these things are coming together. You cannot mimic action. You can only create patterns, all right? And that's what we want to do with this stroke, all right? We're coming in, do not tap down, all right? That tap down is so significant as a piece of muscle memory on the rowing machine. What we do want to replicate is a sense of extending away and supporting the handle as it moves away from the release. That we are not just dropping down, losing control, dragging that handle, all right? We always have pressure on top of the blade. You're either putting weight on it or you're taking weight off. You are never pulling the handle down or pushing the handle down. You're simply adding weight to something that is already light and taking weight off of it, all right? And depending on how much weight, how much pressure you have on it will dictate where the height of the handle is, all right? And that's it. That's the summary. That's how I teach the carry and the position of the handle on the indoor rowing machine. It transfers very cleanly to rowing on the water. And I recommend you out there as a rower, as a coach, do the same. Now, if you're an indoor rower and you have the patience to listen through this, even though I kept referring to the water, good on you, because this pattern is just as important for an indoor rower as it is for the on-the-water rowing, because it promotes poise, control, and above all else, it ensures that when you change direction at the front end, you are applying force horizontally immediately, all right? If at any point, all right, you push with the low handle and the force of the push jerks that handle to create a line between the shoulders and that cog, all right, your 2 points of resistance and action, you have lost a transfer of power, all right? And so while a lot of this is based on transfer to the water, it is also, well, the reason we do it on the water is because it's the most efficient, all right? And the indoor rower is derived from on-the-water rowing and on-the-water principles, all right? It is designed to develop good on-the-water rowers, even though such a massive community of indoor athletes, on-land athletes have adopted it for all of its strengths. The principles are still there, all right? We need to draw level through the drive, all right? We're pushing with the hips, power transfers through the shoulders to the handle. We're coming in, we're drawing with the elbows to bring the handles back. We are not curling, we are rowing at the release, all right? And then you let the handle go, all right? This promotes poise, it promotes control. If you're just there and you're just like, oh, I don't care, all right? You are decreasing the amount of poise and control of your body, and you're making your body positioning, your transfer less efficient, so don't do it, all right? We have the poise, we have the extension, all right? We can relax a little bit here because we don't want to do what I call Frankenstein rowing, all right? Which a lot of athletes will do if we talk to them about keeping their handle level, all right? We do want to be able to relax a little bit, all right? You breathe out. As you come up, the handle rises, all right? If you let the handle drag, all right, you have no control, all right? You're not poised. And performance in rowing is centered around and dependent upon poise in the body to apply power effectively. And that's it, all right? I'll row for about 30 seconds for you guys to see everything in action, and then we'll cut the video. A little more gradual. A little bit exaggerated. Back to gradual. But always when I change direction at the front end, I just move straight back. There's no lifting. It's very linear. And that's it. I hope this helps you guys. This is Travis from GTS Rowing. Check out my website, gtsrowing.com. If you're looking for more information about rowing, a little bit of coaching, consulting, all those options are available there. Catch you on the next video. Thanks for watching.